Oh, Canon, once king of the camera kingdom, bullying Nikon for its lunch money. Oh, hath you fallen from grace. Yeah, I said hath.
All I want is the perfect camera. All I want is the perfect camera.
So if you shot your last YouTube video on a Canon camera, don't panic. Just simply delete the video, back away from your computer, and reshoot it with your mom's camcorder after she's done making her sex tape with your uncle. Look, it's not like Canon doesn't make good cameras, they're serviceable, but I'm a man of principle. If I see a company trying to cheat their customers out of hard-earned sex tape money, they're dead to me. Canon has a lot of work to do to redeem themselves to get me to even glance in their direction. Let's face it, Canon deliberately cripples their cameras to protect their cinema line, and their cinema line is so overpriced it's not even in the same ballpark as other similarly spec'd cameras. I'm in a ballpark where hot dogs are 2 for $1, and they come with free popcorn. Canon charges $7 for one hot dog and it's undercooked. Now don't get me wrong here, I don't mind getting trichinosis from undercooked pork. Trust me, I want it. I've tried to get it, but I'm not paying $7 for it. Here's why I very likely will never buy another Canon camera again. They don't innovate, and they always seem to be 3 steps behind the competition. Say you're a budget YouTube hobo living in his mom's shed in the backyard, and you want to make videos proving that you're smarter than her cat so you can rejoin the family. Christmas is coming up soon, and for some reason, instead of taking advantage of the 2-for-1 Q-Link pendant sale we have going on right now down below, you decide to buy an entry-level camera to get your life back. Canon just released the M50 Mark II. That's their hobo camera. If you compare their specs to the equivalent cameras from other companies, it leaves you baffled. The Fuji XS10 has amazing 4K 24p, good autofocus, IBIS. Canon's 4K has a 90 times crop. It removes their loser pixel autofocus. It looks like it was filmed on a sandwich. Fuji has 1080p 240 frames per second with autofocus. Canon has 720p 120 frames. What the hell? And no autofocus. This is how it is across their entire lineup. Embarrassingly under-spec'd cameras compared to the competition, yet people still buy the cameras because Canon's so well known. People think they're making the safe pick going with a well-known brand. I fell for it. I remember way back in 2009, my birthday was coming up. My mom asked me what I wanted. I was thinking, you know what? I want my first ever digital camera. I seen people posting pictures on Facebook. I was using my webcam to post little selfies, little loser selfies. So I did a bit of research on what the best camera was, and there was 2 companies leading the way. It was Canon and Nikon, and Canon was better. I had no idea I was researching professional DSLRs while looking for the best point and shoot, but I'm a moron, and we all know that. So I went to Best Buy, I bought the Canon SD1100 IS, and it was pretty terrible. 480p video with no autofocus, a 3x zoom, and a battery that lasted 18 seconds. When it came time to upgrade that camera, I was leaning towards sticking with Canon because I thought they were the best, but as I tried camera after camera, the competition performed so much better. I had to question my very existence, and I pondered whether everything I knew was a lie. The Canon cameras were so much noisier, and they had worse autofocus than the Sonys, even the Panasonics. The Panasonic camera had better autofocus. Oh, if only I knew what awaited us back then, the irony could have dawned on my out-of-focus head. But it whizzed past me. If you compare the Sony a7S III with any Canon camera, you have to go up to the C70 to even match some of its specs, and it's actually worse in a lot of ways. The C70 has no IBIS, no 240 frames per second. It's much bigger, heavier, more expensive, and has way worse lenses. The C70 is Canon's first crippled cinema camera, and the hammer hit hard on that one. If you compare the a7S III to a regular camera people might actually buy, like the R5, it gets even more embarrassing for Canon. The R5 has 8K, but it's impossible to edit and the file sizes are way too big. The 4K is pretty much impossible to edit too, and they have weird cripples like C-Log and 10-bit being linked together. You have to shoot either both or neither. So in order to get some respectable dynamic range, you're forced to use these impossible to edit 10-bit files. And when you do, Canon turns off auto exposure for your face and you can't change metering modes in video. The autofocus has also taken a step back from the original EOS R, and in a lot of ways the EOS R is better than the R5 and R6. Having no IBIS actually gives you smoother footage than Canon's terrible wobbly drunk IBIS. And you can't even turn it off. That's the #1 demand of Canon fanboys. How do we turn it off? Help. The color science of the R6 differs from the R5 for no logical reason other than to confuse you and your grandparents. Every feature Canon includes in their cameras first has to run a cripple check to make sure it doesn't compete with their best cinema camera. And once it doesn't, only then will the camera be offered to the public overpriced and 3 firmware updates away from matching the competition's last generation camera. Right now they're working on their R1, the top-of-the-line professional camera, and it will likely just match the 1DX3 and underwhelm our desires for blood. The 1DX Mark III is a brick with no flippy screen. It weighs more than all the fake votes for Biden put together, and Canon has lost touch. They're like grandparents trying to understand hip-hop. They don't get it. So when you combine the fact that they're grandparents at an Eminem concert and they intentionally cripple their cameras, you can see why even hobo YouTubers in their mom's shed who still have not won any of the cat challenges would choose a better camera than what Canon can currently offer. Canon doesn't care about you, they just want your money. Their entry-level cameras focus on small size with tiny lenses and bright shiny menus to appeal to morons. And it's been a successful strategy so far. But the Great Awakening is upon us, my friend. Our ability to see through lies is getting stronger and stronger each day. And I think it's foolish to side with a company that doesn't put its best foot forward. They have less advanced technology than our caveman ancestors had. I saw Canon reps once digging for fossils, trying to find out why cavemen were so much smarter than they were. The answer was, because they cared. It's because they cared. And let's pretend for a second that Canon changes their ways. They hire a new hip executive, they start focusing on video features in their regular cameras, they defeat the cripple hammer at Helm's Deep, and they get serious about making good cameras again. Even then, there's nothing on the roadmap that suggests they're anywhere even close to matching the Sony a7S III in the next 7 years. The R1 will be overpriced and only beat Sony in specs that don't matter, like 6K or 8K maybe. That IBIS will still wobble. You likely won't even get 240 frames per second, while Sony and Fuji, they're probably working on 480p right now. Together, they'll share it. The R1 will be big, expensive, photography-centric for losers. The C70 was their video-centric camera, and it still can't beat the a7S III. It's not even full frame. Imagine what their full frame cinema camera and the RF mount's gonna cost. Canadian numbers don't even go that high. And when you look at their lens lineup, giant ego lenses with zero practicality. And they seem to be focusing on telephoto glass right now. There's no fun wide primes, just weird Tony 11 bird bitches. That nifty 50 will probably have worse focus breathing than a hand grenade. All their glass is so heavy and expensive, and if it's not, it's like a Tony 7-Up nerd lens designed for fruitarians with kitten strength. I'm not seeing a future in Canon that I want to be a part of. They don't have the processing power. They lack the alien technology buried in Antarctica, that's for sure, as well as the hunger to be the best. They're afraid of smartphones, and they're probably working on one right now, the bad one. It'll barely match the Samsung S4, and it turns off in the wind. Correct me if I'm wrong, but what's coming in the near future that looks promising from Canon? The R5 and R6 were some of the worst cameras I've ever tested. Camera Canada told me I could keep them for longer if I wanted, and honestly, I couldn't dread the thought of trying to edit those files anymore. The Sony a7 IV will likely murder the R6. The Fuji X-H2 might surprise us all with something new, something unheard of. Let's not forget Fuji was doing 4K 60p 10-bit in the X-T3, while Canon was still trying to figure out how to get 4K 8-bit with no crop, and they couldn't do it. So Fuji might pull off something crazy soon. Even the Olympus EM1 III outperformed the R5 and R6 in low light. It had better autofocus and noise performance despite its tiny little sensor 4 times as small, but not 4 times as brave. Yeah, that's right. And if Panasonic ever learns how to autofocus without panicking, or if Nikon pulls a D850 throw in the kitchen sink at their Z9, Canon will be shown for what they are, a company once at the top who got lazy and lost their drive. A company consumed by fear. Fear of smartphones, and of cannibalizing their own products with better ones. They've fallen out of touch with what YouTube hobos need. Canon is the great-grandfather of hip-hopless children who grew up on a farm of lies and deceit. And I won't support them until a massive changing of the guard is ordered. So Canon, you suck. Your only hope right now is to release a Canon G7X Mark IV with a 16 to 35mm, dual pixel autofocus, mic jack in there, as well as 480 frames per second and 960 frames per second upscaled 1080p in 4-second bursts, like the ZV-1 wishes it could do. If you don't make that, I'm having my Canon tattooed lasered off my ass. So we're done. Thanks for watching the video and buying a Camera Conspiracies t-shirt. Subscribe for more videos, and I'll see you in the next one.